Good afternoon. I normally would greet a group of visitors from another country in their language, but I do not do this. I'm sticking to English in my greeting to you, and I'll tell you why. Trudy and I grew up about 6 miles north of here, next to the Ballard community, of course, where all the Scandinavians came when we settled this country. And I learned that Ballard consists of a constant battle between the Swedes and the Finns and Norwegians and the Danes. And I have adopted our policy of strict neutrality amongst all of these nations, and that has done us well. I am so excited to have a chance to talk with you. You've come so far from some wonderful countries, Helsinki and cities in Stockholm and Bergen and Oslo and Copenhagen, but you need to understand the center of the Norwegian or the Nordic people is Seattle, Washington. I just want to make sure you understand that. The Nordic people gave my state much more than great people to fish and harvest our timber. They gave our state a culture which still exists, which we still benefit from dramatically. And I'm very proud of our state. It's the most beautiful physically state in the United States, but it also is the most Nordic because it still embraces the value system that the four Nordic countries really engage in. It's why we've had one of the best healthcare systems. Group health started here as sort of a community-based health system. It's why we are the most environmentally conscious in the state and respect our natural world, which is what I view a Nordic value system. We have the values of the Nordic people, and it is embraced in our political system as well. It's why we've been so open to the immigrant community, and why we joined the Nordic countries while one of the presidents, an old president here, was trying to prevent Muslims from coming to our country. We embraced them to our state of Washington, and we understood this idea of openness to people of different cultures. So I want to thank the Nordic people for giving us a value system that is so effective. And now we're here today talking about the next great thing that we're going to share with the Nordic people, which is a clean energy future for the world that all of our states and our countries are leading on. And there is no greater economic opportunity and no greater moral cause than building a clean energy economy in the state of Washington. Now, we all know the moral cause, but just one tiny little data point. I was on the slopes of Mount Rainier here for Earth Day with our Secretary of Interior, and the rangers told me that our glaciers on Mount Rainier National Park have lost 50% of their ice just during my lifetime. You think about you look at this beautiful mountain, it's iconic in our state, and losing all the glacier ice during the next lifetime is a pretty profound thing. This is not acceptable to us. It is not acceptable to people of the Nordic countries. But we also understand this is the single greatest economic opportunity, perhaps in the history of humankind on this planet, because we have to decarbonize the entire economies. And we know that when we do this, this has enormous profitability opportunities and great jobs. And this is what we do in my state. We innovate. We innovated with the first commercial airplane, the Boeing 707. We innovate with software out of Microsoft. We innovate in retailing Amazon. This is what we do in Washington State and what you do in the Nordic countries. So I am really excited of a chance to talk with you about how we can magnify those opportunities. And I want to tell you, you've come to the state with the most aggressive, most dynamic, and I believe ultimately most successful clean energy policies in the United States. We have the best climate bills in the United States. We have the best cap and invest bill that's creating billions of dollars of new money by charging carbon pollution and plowing that money back into companies that we can invent the new carbon-free economy. We have the first law in the United States just a couple months ago, which essentially shuts down further installations of fossil gas in our homes and businesses by requiring heat pumps next year. This is not something a couple decades from now. This is next January. No more hooking up to fossil gas. because we know when you're in a hole, you got to stop digging. We have tied with California, our best commitments to really go with a non-gasoline, diesel-powered passenger fleet. And we have one of the greatest research and development clusters in the United States that's doing some incredible things. One thing I just got to tell you, I was so excited when I woke up yesterday morning and found that the world's first power purchase agreement of fusion-based electricity was announced yesterday of Helion Company by 2028. This is a company that hasn't promised clean electricity from fusion in 2075 or 2050, but in 2028, and actually a legal obligation to produce this. This is the kind of innovation that is taking place across my state. And I got to tell you, I can't turn over a rock without finding an entrepreneur with a brilliant idea that's building new companies in my state. Just give you just a quick trip around Washington State. In the last month, here's some of the things I've seen. I've seen the world's first commercial hydrogen fuel cell plane and the world's first battery commercial plane in the same hangar in Moses Lake, Washington. Both have flown. World's first in the same hangar. About 6 miles from that hangar is going to be the world's first 2 silicon anode battery companies, which have the capacity of increasing battery storage by 15 to 20% game changers. About 4 miles from where we're sitting is the producer of a fuel cell that now powers the world's largest truck, actually now in South Africa. It's darn near as tall as this building, using perfectly powered hydrogen fuel cell. About 60 miles north of here in Bellingham, Washington, is the largest manufacturer of solar panels in the Western Hemisphere and doubling their production right now. So what we are seeing is an explosion of new companies across the state of Washington, and the sky's the limit. Now, what we want to do is to encourage your future investment in our state. And we are very excited about these opportunities. It's so fun to see this beautiful truck parked out in this parking lot. First time it's been here. Congratulations, bringing the great electric truck to the state of Washington. But we want you to bring more than your trucks. We'd like to steal good ideas from you, unmercifully. We were just talking to the ambassador of Denmark about the capacity of using some of the information Denmark has had with their offshore wind, because we have a tremendous asset for our offshore wind off the state of Washington. I'm told it's the richest offshore wind capacity actually in the whole planet. But we now have to figure out a way to incorporate that with our maritime industries, with our fishing industry, and get people comfortable with this idea. This is the kind of collaboration that I think you can help us with, and I'm sure there are ways that we can help you with to share that kind of information. Now, I have to show you for a moment to have an admission that we're kind of behind you in certain ways. When I was in Stockholm at the very first Earth Day in 1972, I was studying in Stockholm for 4 months, studying clean energy technology. And when I got to Stockholm, they had these things called double pane windows. I thought this was really exotic, really cool stuff. They had a subway system. They had a way to incinerate garbage and generate electricity. All this stuff that, we hadn't even dreamed of in Seattle, Washington, and we're now still trying to catch up. Let me tell you how far we have to catch up. When I was in Copenhagen Harbor as a member of Congress about 15, 16 years ago, we were getting a briefing from the Vestas company about the offshore wind that was going on. And the committee I was on at that time was chaired by a congressman from Utah, a Republican from Utah. I happen to be a Democrat, so I can tell this story. And after the briefing, the chair of the committee said to the briefer from Vestas, he says, "Sir, well, now the wind doesn't always blow. When the wind doesn't blow, do you hook up the turbines to batteries and run the blades with batteries? Is that how you make the blades go around?" And the guy from Vestas started laughing, and then pretty realized that this chairman was serious in his question, gave him a serious answer. We're a little bit behind you sometimes. And we intend to catch up most vigorously. So I'm just excited to be with you here. I want you to know that we are embedding clean energy in everything we do too. It's not just a bolt on. It's not. We don't just bolt on climate and clean energy policies to things we do. We embed it in everything we do. So in our educational system, we started a thing called Climb Time, which educates all our teachers in the science of climate change. Unfortunately, there are still occasional voices. There are still people who are not yet incarcerated still denying climate change. That won't come because we still believe in the First Amendment here. But we do want our kids to understand the science of climate change. So we've now started a Climb Time program to educate all our teachers so they can educate our kids. In our transportation system, we are making it hydrogen ready. So we are developing and hope to be a hydrogen hub using some of the federal government investment to become a hydrogen hub for hydrogen distribution. And the Port of Tacoma has already developed plans to do that. We've signed an MOU with Korea to have a trans-Pacific green corridor, if you will. So we embed it in our transportation policies. I am convinced that we are going to continue our path of being the most economically successful state because we are embedding these in our policies. So I want to thank you for being here. I know that the sky's the limit, and I will maintain my policy of strict neutrality. We love you all equally. So, tack så mycket.